15 years old. And she was really sick of the lack of action within her own government, around the world, all of those kinds of things. So she decided she was going to go protest in front of the Swedish parliament. And so she just sat there with her sign, one single little 15-year-old, and amazingly, has created a global movement. I'm just going to have
It's been a really turbulent last year and a half. This has been a time where we have been reminded of how vulnerable we are. But we have also been reminded of how fast things can change and be turned completely upside down. In some parts of the world, we have experienced what it is like to truly treat an emergency like an emergency and to change social norms. But while all this has happened, of course the climate crisis hasn't disappeared. And we have not disappeared. The concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere hasn't been this high for at least 3 million years. It is clearer than ever that no political party is doing close to enough. But it's even worse than that. Not even their proposed commitments are close to being in line with what will be needed to fulfill the Paris Agreement. If we want to ensure a safe present and future on planet Earth, we need to be active democratic citizens and go out on the streets like we are doing today. We must keep going into the streets, and we must keep demanding our leaders to take real climate action. We must never give up. There is no going back now. But we can still turn this around. People are ready for change. We want change. We demand change. And we are the change.
Seeing Greta come in on the boat means that there's like a real way that we can enact the change that we're talking about. It doesn't.
Okay, so there's Greta there. Big movement, right? See all the protests, things like that. Has anybody ever been involved in a climate change protest? Nobody? Well, one person? Well, now's your chance, right? So it looks like fun. So around the world this happens. Fridays for the Future has been happening. I forgot the date. I think it's either today or maybe it was last week. I actually can't remember. But this happens all around the world. Really, really big deal. Every big city in the world has these Friday for the Future demonstrations. Millions of people come out and do this, demanding change. Having speakers get up, talking about the change that they want to see. And some people are very, very clever about, what they do. Sorry. I kind of mixed this up a little bit. Yeah, some people are really clever about the signs that they hold up. I've got some other examples for that. And that's what you're going to do today. So for your group, you need to make a really great poster you're going to march around with. You want to get like 15 slogans, like climate action now, I don't care. Right? Well, I do care. But you got to be some good slogans. I want you to think of some kind of handout flyer you can give to some of the other students. I've got some examples here. This was one from a previous class, what they did. You know, pretty professional looking. So this is in their final documents. But handing it out to people, you know, chanting one of your slogans, we want climate action, that sort of thing. So get some really nice looking, this is where your artists are going to come handy, right? Some nice files. At least a 30-second video. I think that's meant to be more like 3 minutes, but some kind of video for each group. And I've got an example here of a previous year's video. You need to think of a location, how you're going to rally. So we'll start here, but we'll go out, and then you guys have your own little march. So you need like a TKU map and decide what your little route is going to be, and we'll meet in the center. And then we'll have some speeches and a big rally and things like that. Again, if you want to invite people to come join us, the more the merrier, right? Invite all your friends, have fun. And pretend, this is about, you can put this up on social media, you can be part of this global movement. Again, reporters, I don't know if, well, I think there were some reporters who came last time, but you know, you guys pretend like you're the reporters. You want to interview each other, you want to talk to each other, all of those kinds of things. When you make your map, you can think of it in your poster. You made a map last week of your country, and that was really good. So you can do one globally if you want to do it on a focus of what your country was about. That's all up to you. This is an example of a video that one group did. You might recognize some people. There's the map. But then at the end, they start to interview each other and things like that. So you can have a look at this on the thing. Okay, so that being that, here are some issues. If you want to think around some of these issues, these have been in the news recently. I will just stop very quickly. Whether it's around, you want to focus on fresh water. You want to think about now that they found some plastic rocks. Anyone see this? Okay, rocks are forming from plastic and natural materials, and they're finding this in some very kind of distant islands, some very remote places, so that's a little frightening. Obviously, Pacific Islanders are bearing a lot of the brunt of climate change. They're sort of stepping up. These are, again, some of the protests that have happened just recently. You can track different protests that are happening around the world. That's pretty cool. One of the bigger protests that happened. Also, you see, this one's in the U.S. that this was last week, 90 sites. But this was a very specific protest for kind of like old people. And so the oldies got up, and they decided, well, we're going to have our own protest as well. It's not just about the young people. You can't have all the fun, right? Some of the signs people come up with, all the clever slogans, that's up to you, what kind of slogans you want to come up with. And these are some of the posters from previous years.